Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for taking some time to connect for our SMB demo webinar to get a better understanding of how A2X works. Before we jump in and talk about A2X, just a little bit about myself. My name is David Monroe. I'm one of the sales team members here at A2X. And just a quick plug about our company as well, because a lot of folks ask where we're based out of. We're a team of almost 70, and we're kind of based all over. We have deep roots here in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Europe. So for you guys as sellers, regardless of where you are, you're in really, really great hands. So the purpose of today's call is just to kind of give you guys a quick run through and a little demo of A2X. But before we kind of jump in and look at the product together, I just wanted to start with kind of a quick overview of some ground rules, what A2X does. And so A2X, we've been in this space for 13 plus years, and throughout that time, what our main focus has been is to be the industry's best payout reconciliation tool for sellers and for accountants and bookkeepers. And the selling channels A2X can connect to, we thrive in kind of the Amazon, Shopify, PayPal, Etsy, eBay, and Walmart environments. And from an accounting solution standpoint, think QuickBooks Online, think Xero, think Sage Business Cloud for some UK folks, NetSuite ERP tools like that, and as well as some manual accounting connections for desktop environments as well. And so what A2X is all about is our whole goal is to automate payout reconciliation and understand the transactions and payouts that are coming in from the selling channels and create beautiful matching journal entries into your accounting system that one-click reconcile and match to cash. So that's kind of the first big thing to understand about A2X. A lot of sellers, when they first spin up on e-commerce and bring in an accounting solution like QuickBooks or Xero, it can be really easy to kind of connect those two sources and have all the individual order and customer data flow across into your accounting system. And at A2X, really what our philosophy is let's treat our net deposits, our payouts that are coming from those selling channels as our source of truth, and we're going to create consolidated entries that match out to cash from there. And a couple of the reasons why this is kind of the methodology we've landed on is it's a really scalable solution. So whether you're doing 100 orders, 1,000 orders, 10,000 plus orders a month, this allows us to kind of automate the payout reconciliation process and not overcomplicate what's happening inside of the GL. And it lets us just lean on those payouts as our source of truth. So in a Shopify environment, which is going to be the main focus for today, but this also holds for those other channels we mentioned, things like PayPal, Etsy, eBay, Walmart, etc. You're typically going to see payout data coming in every 3 or 4 days. So A2X's job is to kind of capture all the raw data that comes across from the selling channel to better organize the transaction types, and we'll kind of get into how it all works from there. Fundamentally, we're doing the same thing with every channel we support. The curveball with Amazon, of course, is their payout frequency is roughly every 2 weeks. So there's a little bit greater of a chance that payout data is going to cross things like the end of the month. Don't worry, our tool is designed to kind of understand when that's happening and realize we need to create 2 separate entries to make sure we're recognizing everything in the correct month, which is great. So the question then becomes, well, how does A2X do this work? What's kind of the magic here? And so really what A2X is doing is for every payout that the selling channels kind of initiate and send your way, we have API access into kind of their development environment. So we're pulling raw data information from them. And we understand that every payout that comes in is made up of orders, and all those orders are made up of transactions. So once A2X ingests all of this uncategorized data from the selling channel, the next question then becomes, okay, we now need to work to categorize this information. And how we do this is we basically build out a rule book that we want A2X to follow, where we look at the different transaction types, and every selling channel has a slightly different list of transaction types. And that'll become apparent once we jump in and kind of dig into a Shopify environment here. And we're mapping each transaction type to a destination account in your GL. And that's what lets us automatically understand. Payout comes in, all the transaction data is lined up, we now have a destination for it. We can now post an automated entry across into your accounting system to reconcile to cash, which is beautiful because we work with sellers that come from environments where they're coding the entire payout to sales. So, they're massively understating their sales, they're ignoring fees. We work with sellers that are doing a single entry at the end of the month. So really rear view mirror reactive work happening into the GL. So A2X, we bring you into that world where you have real-time data flowing into the GL with every payout, and from there, really the gold star for us is having a P&L and data in your GL that you can trust. And you don't have to just take our word for it. As mentioned, we work with sellers as well as accounting and bookkeeping firms. We work with 1,500 of the world's leading e-com firms out there, and they all love A2X. And we definitely lean on their deep partnership to kind of improve the product, which is fantastic. So let's jump in and take a look at a A2X environment here. I've just hopped over into a demo profile, and if this is your first time seeing A2X, I'll give you a quick UI tour. So in the top right corner, this is where you build out your A2X login. This can be a Gmail account, this can be your Xero credential, this can be your Intuit credential, whatever's easiest for you. And then really important over on the left-hand side here, this is our big account selector. And this is where if you're selling on a single channel, like Shopify, for example, and you just have one store, yours is going to look really simple. But if you're one of those multi-channel sellers and you have activity across a couple different channels, what you're able to do is simply, pop in the different names of the channels you're looking for. If I type in Amazon as an example, you can see some of the demo profiles there that are coming up in my environment. So once we have a single account kind of in our focus here and we are ready to kind of get things set up, the first two steps are very straightforward. If you think about these as kind of like our data sources, this is kind of where we need to connect to kind of have information flow properly through A2X. So step one is very simple. We need to connect into your accounting system. And the reason for that is we obviously need to understand your chart of accounts, be able to post our entries across into Xero or QuickBooks, as well as the other accounting solutions. And we also then monitor the bank feed, right? Because that's where we're seeing all the payout data come in. So step two then is we need to connect, of course, to the selling channel, to Shopify, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Walmart, etc. Typically, if you don't have admin or app install privileges for the store you are supporting, it's no problem. We can simply send an email invite out to the admin to approve A2X. We're apps in both marketplaces, so it's kind of a very simple connection process, which is beautiful. So once we have our accounting system and our selling channel connected, the real work in A2X starts here at step 3. And this is where we come back to that rule book we're going to build out to kind of have a plan in place for all of the different transactions that come through with each payout. And so the first thing I want to shout out here on our mappings page is we do have an auto setup function. So that's up here in the top left corner. And what's great about this is if you're a brand new QuickBooks Xero user, or perhaps you don't have a super robust chart of accounts, we can basically give you a short list here to kind of fill in some gaps on your chart of accounts. And then also, of course, kind of auto map transactions into these categories. And this gets a good chunk of the setup work handled. But don't stress, right? If this doesn't sound like it's for you in this auto setup world, we can absolutely map to your existing accounts. And as you connect your selling channel in, right, it's going to ask some basic questions. So we do have a little setup questionnaire it runs you through. And that starts to inform some of the information we're seeing on our mappings page. So if you respond here, right, that you're based in certain countries, but you're selling into various countries, you will see a little bit more of a complex setup down in our mappings page. So the first thing we want to look at are these auto mapping rules. And you can kind of think of these as setting transaction kind of rules based on the different transaction types. So this is kind of the list of transactions that we comb through when it comes to our Shopify payout data. So we're separating out things like discounts, refunds, sales, shipping income, payment and selling fees, gift card liabilities, gateway transactions, which we'll get into a little bit. Those are things like PayPal, Klarna, Afterpay, Stripe, all those fun things. Pending payments and various tax lines. So what we're doing at this first pass here from a mappings perspective is we're now mapping each transaction type over to an account in our GL. So this is pulling directly from your chart of accounts in QuickBooks or Xero. And the really good news is as you kind of digest this mappings page for the first time, you don't have to go through this process alone. All of our plans include at least a 30-minute general onboarding session, with some of our premium plans including 60-minute onboarding as well. So we'll get into that as we hop over and look at plan pricing in a little bit. So once we've kind of set a account destination at the top of each transaction category, we can then start digging a little bit deeper into these other transaction types. So as if I click into income, for example, what we're going to see is at the top, we still have our transaction categories for kind of each auto mapping rule. But underneath, we're now seeing the individual transaction information. Really important here is split out by marketplace. So in Shopify's world, marketplaces are really fun. It's basically if you are super social media savvy and you have a TikTok store that you're selling and all the orders from TikTok are kind of back-ending into Shopify, we're going to basically pick up that that's happening here, and we give you a little crib sheet so you can understand what these little digit codes here mean from Shopify's end, but that would basically indicate this is a sale that's coming in from a marketplace. And so now what you're making a decision on is, okay, we've set our sales auto mapping rule to automatically flow into a Shopify sales account. But do I want to, for example, split out activity happening at the marketplace level into their own set of accounts? Another really common marketplace we see is Shopify point of sale. So if you're brick and mortar retail, you do some farmers market work, and you're using Shopify POS, we'll see all your POS locations here in this marketplace column. And again, that's giving us the flexibility to map those out to separate accounts, which is great. A good thought process to have as you look at our mappings page is think about what you want your P&L, your income statement, to look like. And that gives us a good idea for kind of how in-depth and how customized you want the mappings experience to be, which is great. The last thing we're going to touch on our mappings page here has to do with those payment gateways I kind of mentioned earlier, the PayPal, Klarna, Afterpay, and some of those fun things. The disclaimer here is if you think about where we're getting our data, we're connected into Shopify directly and we're connected into the accounting system. So as soon as payments start flowing through some of those other checkout services, what we call payment gateways, what Shopify hasn't been great at picking up for kind of the last 12 years we've been doing this is the fees that those services are charging you as a seller. So traditionally what we've had to do is for each of those active kind of payment gateways you have on your Shopify store, we build out a dedicated accounts receivable clearing account with you during your onboarding. So in this case, we've done this for PayPal. And so what this means is every single time transactions come in from PayPal, they're going to land in this accounts receivable clearing account. And then as we get into it and we push our entries over into QuickBooks and we reconcile those, the cash in the bank against the entry we're pushing across, naturally the balance in our clearing account is going to start to draw down, which is beautiful. That's exactly what we want. It's moving in the right direction. But the thing we're missing is the fees, what PayPal has charged you as a seller. So traditionally what our workflow has been is each month you would pull an invoice from PayPal, and that's going to break down the fees that they've charged you. And you're then just going to make a manual adjusting entry to this account, which will tie everything out beautifully and kind of understand the fee picture. So that is kind of the current or historic process we've been leaning on. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we do actually directly connect to PayPal. So if we just deviate out of our Shopify environment here for 2 seconds, here's an example where we've connected directly into PayPal. This is fantastic. And how this works is we can then pick up an individual payout that comes in from PayPal. And for the first time here, right, we're pulling out the fee line there, which is fantastic. This is an example of a seller who's operating in just one currency. But if you are accepting multi-currency through PayPal as well, we can also pick up the currency FX swings as well, which is fantastic. So as we hop back into our Shopify environment, we've kind of taken a first look at the mappings page. Let's now start seeing the posting. So this is the payout data that's coming in from Shopify, and we're now going to understand how we're pushing those entries across into QBO or Xero. So as we look down the left-hand side, these are our date ranges. You can see pretty consistent Shopify payments. They're paying out every 3-4 days is kind of the cadence we're seeing here. But for this particular seller that we're connected to, you can also see they have things like PayPal, Afterpay, some bank deposits coming in, and those can be coded to kind of come across daily. So that's a huge advantage, right, over a historic process where you're doing month-end entries. We're flowing this data in real time as this payout information becomes available, which is a huge advantage. So as we hop into one of these payouts, let's grab this one right at the top, April 10 to 14th from Shopify Payments for just over $6,200. we're going to see the work that A2X has done. And the first thing that's really important is, we kind of talked about that raw data that A2X brings in to break down all the transaction information. That's what lives in the top left corner here. We'll come back to this as we look at cost of goods sold in a little bit. And this is us executing on our mappings plan, right? We have all the different transactions down the left-hand side here. We have the dollar amounts kind of aggregated for each. We have the account we're impacting here. And on our mappings page, there is also a tax column. So this is great if you're one of those sellers that has different VAT codes depending on different product you're selling, 0%, 5%, 20%, that we commonly see for UK and EU sellers. We don't, unfortunately, split data out to a state level from a tax perspective, so you most likely will still need guidance from a tax solution there for US sellers. So once we're ready to say, okay, we have our entry, we want to push across over to QuickBooks, let's come down here and let's click the Send to QuickBooks option. We're now going to hop right into our bank feed. So I've just hopped in here through transactions and bank transactions. I've selected my checking account, and over on the right-hand side here, what we can see is our deposit, our payout that came through from Shopify on the one side. And as we open up our entry here from A2X, we're ready to one-click match, which is fantastic. No more manually fighting through reports and kind of having questionable entries pushed across into your GL. And again, same data we saw on our payout screen earlier, right? The account we're impacting, our debits, our credits, all of the transaction information, and then in the very bottom left, that raw data file that is attached with all that order and transaction information. So for UK sellers with making tax digital compliance questions, this is how we're able to kind of maintain compliance there, which is fantastic. Perfect. So that's a tip of the iceberg overview of the core functionality inside of A2X. There's a couple other things we're going to dive into from here, we'll kind of carry on. So as we look at our sales and fees reconciliation entry up top here, the other thing we can do for each payout is we can kind of pick up cost of goods sold information. So this comes back to that raw data file where we're able to understand every SKU that's being sold. We're able to understand the quantity of each. And the missing link for us then is this unit cost. So we'll touch on how we bring this cost information into A2X in a minute. The first thing it's actually letting us know about this COGS entry is we're actually missing a cost for a certain SKU. So that's on us. We need to kind of update the cost sheet, which we'll go look at in a little bit. And it's kind of flagged that here with a little exclamation point. So if we hop then up to the very top of A2X, we click on costs, and you may have to enable this in settings before you're able to kind of dive in and take a look. But there's a couple different ways you can feed that SKU and cost information into A2X. For Shopify, one of our favorite ways is to simply pull this data in from the products page. So as we look down, right, the different SKUs down the left-hand side, the average cost per SKU, of course the SKU information that's pulled in from Shopify, you can basically feed this information in. The limiting factor here is we're not a dedicated inventory tool, so these are not FIFO, hyper-accurate landed costs. These are an average cost per SKU. And if that is not kind of sufficient for your needs, please, no stress. We are happy to work alongside a handful of great inventory tools where you're able to kind of offload the inventory accounting work over to them if you have that need. The other way you can feed cost data in is we do have some integrations with some of those inventory tools like Finale, but another really common one for Amazon sellers is just to use a cloud CSV file. So this is like a Google Sheet, and it's the world's most basic spreadsheet. Column A is SKU, column B is that average cost per SKU, and once you feed that into us, we are able to post across the COGS data, which is fantastic. So one of the last things we'll look at is a quick peek into our reporting module, and then we'll wrap up by just taking a look at a P&L in QuickBooks and then pivoting over to look at plan pricing. So from a reporting standpoint, there's a whole bunch of really exciting stuff going on in A2X. One of the more powerful reports that the accountant in your life is going to love is a finance report and a reconciliation report. We aren't going to dive too deep into these, but the philosophy here is we essentially need a way to audit the data that was provided to A2X at time of payout from Shopify and have a way to understand where maybe any gaps have come in throughout the course of the month. And a big reason why kind of these discrepancies can happen in Shopify's data has to do with third-party apps that sellers can install in their stores. Lots of them are very useful, but lots of them also can kind of cause some accuracy issues. So having a finance report you can directly compare to Shopify's data, and then the ability to run reconciliation reports for each category here is super powerful. We also have some great export data reports. So from an inventory standpoint, A2X is not passing through that physical SKU data for the vast majority of our customers. It's really just some zero tracked inventory folks. We would impact inventory quantity. So for everybody else, what you're able to do is run a export SKU quantity by month report. Select the month of March, and it'll give you a breakdown here of the exact number of each product that have been sold, which is super handy when it comes to understanding some inventory stuff, which is great. Beautiful. So before we pivot off to kind of look at plan pricing, I just wanted to show you guys an example of a P&L here in QuickBooks. So once we've been able to kind of push our entries across, match up those transactions to the payouts, we're able to then look here for a very simple P&L for a Shopify seller, right? We can understand our refunds, our sales, the shipping income we've collected, our COGS entries, all the various Shopify fees. This is kind of the financial reality we're hoping to paint for everyone, which is great. And pivoting back for a second to those examples where payouts can cross the end of the month. I've pulled up an example here in our system, and this is a Shopify payout that started on the 29th of June and passed through into July. And so in this case, what we've realized is, okay, we actually have two entries we need to worry about here. We have payout data from the month of June, and we have payout data from the month of July. So we've automatically split out those entries. We're going to post both across into QuickBooks. And then as we open up one of these entries here, you can see we've used a carried balance to carry forward the entry from June to tie everything out here inside of QBO. So great peace of mind from a month-end reporting standpoint to make sure everything is being recorded properly. All right, so one of the last things we're going to touch on here is how our plan pricing works. And then we'll circle back on kind of some next steps for everybody. So we're first going to look at which channels we need to connect. And again, most of our demo today here, we've spoken about Shopify, so we'll keep that theme going here as we look at pricing. So as we click into our Shopify pricing, the first few things we want to consider when it comes to plan fit is how many channels are you connecting and kind of what is an average month in terms of order volume looking like. So you can see in an example here, we have something like our mini plan and our basic plan. These are perfect for sellers that are not doing a ton of volume, but you can see, right, we're having access to one Shopify store, 500 orders a month. From there, one of the things that'll impact first month plan fit is going to be historical cleanup. So A2X is able to basically fetch historical data from these selling channels and help with some cleanup work. So if you're a seller, for example, that's spinning or considering A2X, at spring, and need us to wind back the clock to January, something like this and a $45 basic plan with 6 months of history would be sufficient. But if you have been bad and you haven't been super on top of your books and you need more historical data for cleanup, all it means is for the first month, you need to be in one of these higher end plans to pull the history you need. And we have no problem going back multiple years once you're into this 115 tier plan and above. The other thing that's going to impact first month plan fit is what type of onboarding and support experience are you looking for. Some of our more basic plans do include general 30-minute onboarding, which is a great place to start. If you find you're going to need a little bit more help, a little bit more ongoing support, and you really want that personalized premium experience, again, for the months that you need that onboarding support, you'll just have to upgrade into an eligible plan. From there, we then start to look at ongoing plan fit. So how this works is we're always going to adjust as your order volume increases or decreases. So in a world where you start off with this $45 a month basic plan, and then holiday or your busy season rolls around and your order volume spikes, we're simply going to upgrade as that happens, and then of course downgrade as that high order volume kind of drops out of the window that we kind of look at to determine plan fit. The last thing is then for multi-channel sellers. So if you're not just selling on Shopify, if you also have some other channels going on, you can kind of gang together as many of these individual smaller plans as you want. The only channel that works a little bit differently is Walmart. Their pricing starts at kind of the $79 level. But if you say, okay, well, you know what, we're actually doing some pretty good volume through Shopify and we are doing good volume through Etsy. So, rather than combining, multiple $45 and multiple $79 plans, we can pivot over and look at our multi-channel options. And these are where we're jumping straight into multiple channels. We're looking at how many store connections and selling connections you'll need. And again, then combining that order volume. So really popular for some Shopify sellers would be like this A2X multi 1K $89 a month plan. And if you have big PayPal activity, you can kind of tack PayPal into that as that second channel, which can be really beneficial. Okay, guys. So in terms of next steps for everybody, what we're going to do is I'm going to hop over into an environment that is in trial mode, just so I can kind of show you what you're going to see. So here's an example of a brand new A2X account we've created. Right, we haven't even named it yet, so definitely name that after your business or selling DBA name so you can kind of understand easily what it is. But in terms of how you get started and kind of choose a plan, that's all done at 12 o'clock here. You can come up to the very top, click Choose Plan, reference your previous month order volume to, again, land on that initial plan fit. If you have any questions as you're, again, considering A2X or as you're kind of trying to figure out plan fitted next steps, please reach out to our CS team. They are rock stars. All you need to do is you can click on the A2X logo. It brings you back to our homepage, and then in the bottom right here, we have our chat with our customer success and teams from there. And they're happy to kind of, again, give you guidance, answer specific questions before you jump in with both feet and make a decision. All right, so thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to consider A2X and hop in for a demo. Again, our commitment to accuracy, our industry-leading support team, and our deep partnerships within our accounting channels are all things that kind of differentiate us and make us a solution that we know you guys will be happy with. Anything else you guys need from there, again, please reach out to our CS team with any questions, and I will look forward to connecting with you from there. Bye for now.